Hi, this is Jules. I thought I'd make a little mental health first aid kit. This is just 6 little tips which I found helpful in the last few days. So the first idea is that it's okay not to know. There has been a sudden epidemic of new epidemiologists. A week ago, I didn't even know what that word meant. Now suddenly, everybody seems to be an expert and to have their opinion about what's the right way to deal with this crisis, what the government's doing wrong, and so on. And it's just okay to admit that we don't know everything. We're not an expert. We don't have to have an opinion about everything. We don't have to share that opinion with everyone. I think of Socrates, the Greek philosopher, who really taught the wisdom of admitting what you don't know. I think he and his successors taught that often our need for over certainty, our desperate need for certain stories, often causes us suffering, and we can let go of that and learn to tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty without reaching for the false security of overconfidence. So that's the first idea. We can accept not knowing everything. We can accept ambiguity and uncertainty, even though it's uncomfortable. The second idea is that all adversity is training. This is a central idea in all the great wisdom traditions, that we can do this kind of flip, so that instead of just seeing adversity as completely awful and catastrophizing about it, we can see it as an opportunity to grow in wisdom and in maturity and in emotional intelligence and in spiritual strength. So it's a central idea in Stoicism. Um, Epictetus said, difficulties reveal people's character. Therefore, when adversity affects you, consider that the universe has matched you with a tough sparring partner. Now, that doesn't mean just always putting on a kind of stiff upper lip and just being afraid of ever showing fear or difficult emotions to other people. You can have a wiser approach to this idea. Particularly, I think of the teachings of Pema Chodron, who is a Tibetan Buddhist. Well, she's Western, but trained in Tibetan Buddhism. And she wrote 2 books which are super helpful for this kind of situation. One's called The Places That Scare You, and the other is called When Things Fall Apart. And she says that just as the Stoics teach, we can welcome difficult experiences as opportunities for growth. We can also welcome difficult emotions when they arise and see them as fuel for our training, as compost for our spiritual growth. So when you feel fear or anxiety or sadness or anger or bewilderment, rather than pushing it away and struggling against it and saying, I mustn't feel that, just go, well, this is what's happening now, and I accept that, and I can, practice noticing and mindfulness and acceptance and compassion in whatever arises. So whatever arises, um, that's the next lesson, that's the next training session. And Socrates taught that actually to philosophize is to learn how to die, that every difficult experience is training for that kind of final experience that every being is going to go through. And I think probably a certain amount of people's fear and anxiety at the moment is the fear of death, and that's totally natural. But we're all unlikely to die in this pandemic, but we are going to eventually. So we can use this kind of collective near-death experience, this brush with death, um, to train for that final experience that we are going to go through. We are eventually going to be lying on a hospital bed or somewhere else, and how are we going to meet that moment? Are we going to meet it with astonishment and bewilderment and fear? How could this happen to me? Or are we going to meet it with wisdom and maturity and compassion? So we can see this situation as kind of training for that difficult experience that we're all going to go through. So how do we train? Well, whether you're practicing like meditation on a mat or you're just training in everyday life, the first thing is training in attention. So where's your mind at? Often we're just caught up in our thoughts, chasing stories in our mind, basically on autopilot. And so we can just bring our attention back to the present moment and just think, where's my mind at? And then we can focus on our breath. Just when you're feeling anxious, just slow your breathing down. You can, for example, breathe in for 7 seconds and then breathe out for 11 seconds. And that both brings your mind back to the present moment and also just relaxes your emotions and relaxes your body. So the breath is just super helpful through difficult experiences. Um, Thirdly, we practice acceptance. Just whatever's happening, whatever's arising, that's not the same as kind of despair or fatalism. It's actually just, okay, what's this situation now? What do I have to accept about it? What is out of my control at the moment? And what's in my control? And finally, compassion. What are you putting out into the world at the moment? What can you do to help others today? Whether that's the elderly and vulnerable, are there people who live near you who are kind of isolated? Can you reach out to them and offer your help? Can you sign up for to be a volunteer for your local community? Can you reach out to your family, particularly again, elderly members of your family, to just check in with them perhaps every day? Check in with your friends, with neighbors, and online. What are you putting out online? Are you putting out fear or panic or judgmentalism, or are you trying to help your online community by putting out positive messages? So what I've been doing in just my morning meditation is imagining kind of bringing in like the wisdom of great teachers or God, if you believe in God, and then just trying to put out or emanate like ripples, kind of wisdom and love in terms of, and maybe things like prayer or loving kindness meditation do help in this very kind of interconnected time. So we can wish love and kindness to all beings, that kind of Buddhist prayer, or there's similar kinds of ideas in most of the wisdom traditions. And I think about these 90s films like Armageddon or Deep Impact or Independence Day, which imagined global catastrophic threats like asteroids or aliens, and these threats bringing humanity together. And humans have faced very few, hardly any threats like that, which are really global collective threats. Climate change, I guess, is one of them. And so is COVID-19. I mean, this is our asteroid, and it's facing every country, every culture, every language. And I think it is an opportunity for us to recognize our common humanity and just to wish compassion to humans all over the world who are suffering in big ways and small through this crisis. Fourth, I think we can think about creative connecting. So there's been a lot of talk about social distancing, and it's massively important to slow the spread of the virus. But what we're talking about is actually not social distancing so much as physical distancing, keeping, to some extent, limiting our exposure to ourselves physically. But we don't want to socially distance. We still need social connection. It's very important for getting us through this crisis. So we need to get creative about connecting online and think about creative ways we can do that using things like Zoom and Skype and YouTube. So, one idea might be, for example, if you have children, to get them to make little videos for their grandparents who might be in isolation. So like you could do like 1 minute videos every day, which they could look forward to as a kind of advent calendar, just to lift their mood. Another idea is you could send your parents, if they're in isolation, a photo of one inspiring thing that you come across each day. Or you could start an online book club for your friends. So just getting creative about new ways of connecting. I also think about the importance of games and play. So one of the bad things this crisis is doing is taking away our usual distractions, as in sport. So we can think about new ways to connect through games. Games are so important for getting people through difficult times. Herodotus tells the story about the Lydians who faced an 18-year famine, and the way they coped with hunger, Herodotus says, was by playing games of dice, or what looks like, I don't know, some kind of ping pong here. So if we can't watch the football, we can play online Scrabble, or gaming, all kinds of online games like that. It's also useful to think about the types of social connection which maybe aren't that helpful at the moment. So probably limit the number of times that we check the news each day, or Twitter. Twitter is quite an intense place to check into these days. So we can be careful about not overdoing it on checking the bad news. I think about a quote by Aldous Huxley, who wrote this during World War II in the Perennial Philosophy, when he was kind of freaking out at the beginning of World War II, checking what was happening in Europe to his friends and family. And he wrote, agitation over happenings which we are powerless to modify, either because they have not yet occurred or else are occurring at an inaccessible distance from us, achieves nothing beyond the inoculation of here and now with the remote or anticipated evil that is the object of our distress. And I also think of this great saying by Jesus, who said, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. So we can ruin our lives anticipating future evils, but there's probably enough bad stuff happening right now for us to focus on. So we can be the curator of our soul. The word curator means someone who takes care, a guardian. Think about what you put in and think about what you put out. And, you're putting in good books, nourishing music, nourishing teachings, and putting out good stuff. Like, this is a great opportunity for creative projects. So I think about, Newton came up with the theory of gravity when his college at Cambridge closed because of the plague. So no pressure there. Or J.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings during World War II. So these times of disruption and to some extent kind of forced isolation can be extremely fecund as moments for reflection and for creativity. Fifth, get out into nature when you can. I love this tweet from Jeremy Farrar, who's the head of the Wellcome Trust, which is this biggest medical research institute in Britain. And they're right in the heart of the fight against this pandemic. And he tweeted this, challenging times, but pause for a stunning walk to work this morning. And I went for a walk yesterday. I've been going for a walk every day, and it's amazing. It feels like you're in a kind of war, and then you just go into nature, and there's this the world of nature is it's just not caught up in the concerns of humanity at the moment. So it's just a wonderful daily little holiday from the kind of the tumult that's going on in the human sphere. It's amazing how the animal world doesn't really care about our concerns at the moment. And here's a little video about one animal that particularly doesn't seem to give a shit.
This is the honey badger. Watch it run in slow motion. It's pretty badass. Look, it runs all over the place. Whoa, watch out, says that bird. Ew, it's got a snake. Oh, it's chasing a jackal. Oh my gosh. Oh, the honey badgers are just crazy. The honey badger has been referred to by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most fearless animal in all of the animal kingdom. It really doesn't give a shit. If it's hungry, it's hungry. Ew, what's that in its mouth? Oh, it's got a cobra? Oh, it runs backwards? Now watch this. Look, a snake's up in the tree. Honey badger don't care. Honey badger don't give a shit. It just takes what it wants. Whenever it's hungry, it just, ew, and it eats snakes? Oh my god, watch it dig. Look at that digging. The honey badger is really pretty badass. They have no regard for any other animal whatsoever. Look, and it's just grunting and ew, eating snakes. Ew, what's that, a mouse? Oh, that's nasty. Oh, they're so nasty.
So the final tip is that we're probably going to get this virus. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be in circulation for years. If you don't get it now, you'll get it probably in the winter or next year or the year after. And so you'll probably be ill for a week, and then you'll probably, you'll develop immunity to it. And I think it's possible that a lot of people's anxiety at the moment is the anxiety of anticipation. It's this storm on the horizon, and anticipation can mess you up, and um, our thoughts and imagination can cause us a lot of problems. And this is, I'm going to show you just the last little video about how anticipation of a future situation can mess people up. This is a video of people thinking about jumping off a diving board, and you can watch how their minds and their thoughts really kind of screw them up. And the people who actually manage to do it are the people who practice wise self-talk. So enjoy the video, and I hope these tips have been helpful, and take care of yourselves and support each other, and I will see you again soon.
Alright, good. There you go.